Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the latest Urban Living webinar. Today, we are looking at flex workspace and co-working. My name is George Sell. I'm editor of Urban Living News, and we're a multimedia B2B platform for the living sector. Today's webinar is going to last an hour. We're going to have around 45 to 50 minutes of Q&A with our panelists, and then we'll have a bit of time at the end for Q&A from the audience. Please do submit your questions throughout the session. We may get around to answering there and then, but if not, we'll save some time at the end. And an email with a link to a recording of the session will be sent to everybody who's registered over the next couple of days. So before we get started, I just wanted to show some screen grabs from stories that we've run on our Urban Living News website to give the discussion a bit of context. Some of the things that are going on. Bottom left has obviously been the biggest story in the industry for quite some time, that WeWork filing for bankruptcy. It's been a fairly long and torturous process, and we still don't know exactly how that's going to play out. We've had some M&A and some consolidation over in the States. DeskPass and Breather are merging. We've had some interesting new entrants to the market. Beal Group in Porto, who are represented on the session today. I've got an interesting concept, the vertical concept, which we'll talk a bit about. We've got a former NBA basketball player in Denver getting into the space. I tried to get him on the session, but it's about 3 o'clock in the morning for him over there. But he's worth checking out. And then we've got UK operators such as Runway East expanding and signing sites in new cities. So we've got a fantastic panel today. I'm going to ask them all to introduce themselves so we can find out a bit more about them, and then we'll get stuck into the conversation. So we'll go from left to right as we see them on the screen. So can I first welcome Anna? Good morning to you. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Hello, George, and thank you for the invitation for this webinar. I'm Anna Sousa. I work as a general manager in Vertical Coworking. Vertical Coworking is a brand of 2 co-working space for now based in Porto, Portugal, but it belongs to a group of companies connected to the hospitality sector, and we work in this sector for 15 years by now, so we have some experience. The co-working space is the pretty new business that we are working with 2 years and a half of experience by now, and we are working with this vertical hospitality. That is something that we like to say that it's the way that we work our business, because we have all the companies that we have on the group are capable to answer any need of any traveler, even coming to Porto for leisure or for work, for example.
Great stuff. Thank you, Anna. Tina, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks, George, for inviting me on the panel today. My name is Tina Wolder. I come with 30 years experience from this industry referred to as co-working, managed solutions, flexible space, co-working, club space. It's got many names. And I have rolled out many locations throughout my career across many cities and countries, from historic buildings to high-rise towers across many countries. I've seen a huge, obviously, change and evolution within the industry. My main expertise lies within managing design teams and construction teams for speedy rollout and efficient rollout. 7 years ago, I set up my own company, T-Form Spaces, and we support operators with their location strategy, opening new sites, refurbishing existing buildings. We also take on ad hoc business projects for operators, such as recruitment campaigns, cost procurement initiatives to save money across the bottom line, and any mergers and acquisitions activity as well. We offer support also to clients that are moving in and out of HQ locations. There's been a lot of downsizing, obviously, in the last couple of years. So we work with clients also in traditional lease spaces where they are moving, and we're offering support throughout the whole process of site due diligence, managing the project construction process, bringing in the expertise that the client needs across furniture, technical solutions, right to the end delivery. And sometimes we also offer advisory service after the move-in. And some of those clients are also moving in and out of the serviced managed space altogether. So we cover the circle, so to speak. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you, Tina. Well, finally, good morning to you.
Morning. Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Mine's very short compared to these two. I'm a chartered surveyor. I've been specialising in the flexible workspace sector for almost 20 years. So, which from Tina, I advise property owners and operators, flexible workspace operators, co-working operators, on their options for expansion, or with property owners working with operators to bring operators into their buildings, why they should be looking at that, what sort of operation they want in there, and in particular, I specialise in partnership agreements, management agreements, joint ventures between the two parties.
Great stuff. Thank you, Will. If you look in the chat, you'll be able to see the LinkedIn profiles for our speakers today. So if you want to carry the conversation on after the session, then please do get in touch with them. And also don't forget to submit your questions as we go along, either in the chat or in the Q&A. Okay, let's get cracking then. Will, I want to stick with you for a minute. Obviously, for people outside the space, WeWork is probably the one name that they're all aware of, and they've had some very well publicized troubles recently. To what extent do you think that's affected awareness of and the reputation of the flex work sector?
I think there's two distinct points there: the awareness side and the reputation side of it. I think the awareness side is and was huge. You know, even people like Mark Dixon recognise that WeWork really put the sector on the map. The sector's been around in various guises between, depends who you speak to, 20, 30, 40 years. And WeWork really took it to the next level. We used to, talk about serviced offices in the past, and they really were just offices, corridors down the middle, offered on flexible terms for smaller occupiers. WeWork sort of blew that out the water and started creating spaces that people wanted to go to as opposed to needed to go to, and started producing breakout areas, co-working, hot desking, whatever else went with that. So they really set the bar. They moved the bar massively in the sector. What was, sort of very much a steady crawl along, immediately shot up. So I think in terms of awareness, through the roof. And I think, we talk about this. If you look at, actually just prior to COVID in America, 72% of searches for the word flexible workspace were actually the words WeWork. So they were getting direct channels straight through to them. So that obviously set a huge precedence in the marketplace. In terms of reputation, look, the sector, especially in the UK, has always been, it's the most mature market. It's always had a reputation, rightly or wrongly, of something that's sort of, easy in, easy out, sort of small companies, didn't really matter sort of thing. SMEs, we're not really bothered with them. We're looking for long-term leases. That flexibility is just nothing to do with what we want to do. But having said that, WeWork changed that by bringing in product, service, hospitality. And I think they're the elements that flex. And I think flex is quite a dangerous word to use sometimes. It has connotations of easy in, easy out, small companies, dodgy companies, whatever it is. The flex product, the co-working product that is now being produced, is akin to hotels. Everybody talks about the hotelification, but it's that reputation. It's that product that owners are now looking towards. And I think when you look at somebody like WeWork, and remember, WeWork have been making a loss since they started. People have tried to jump up and down recently, saying, "Oh my goodness, they're renegotiating leases, etc." Well, we all saw this coming. you know, even within the outside of the sector, people saw this coming in the real estate world. So I think there's an ebb and flow with the sector, but there's definitely now an upward trajectory where the WeWork model, the co-working model, the product model, the service model is definitely becoming, you know, really to the forefront of people's minds, especially property owners and their occupiers. And I think, you know, WeWork have led that.
Yeah, thanks, Will. Tina, when your discussions with landlords, has the WeWork saga made some of them wary about getting more involved in the sort of flex and co-working space, or are they generally pretty convinced of the benefits of the model?
I'd say, I mean, you know, obviously we've got some negative connotations around it, like Will also said, but, you know, there are some strong operators in the marketplace out there with new products, new design, you know, nicely designed spaces. So I think it's a shame that we're focusing on the negative when actually this business and the sector has been in progression and in evolution for a long time, and we're going to go to the next step, you know, very shortly, which is why there's a lot of talk in the industry of what happens next. I think it may have made some people wary. Some existing operators are probably also looking at their own cost models, you know, what are they spending their money on? But even existing landlords are also experimenting with their own products. You know, a lot of landlords have got so much spare stock available in the marketplace, you know, and they're giving, you know, flexible space, are looking on some of their own floors and launching their own products. So I think it's just an evolution of how much space there is available in the marketplace, as how I see it. And I think we should step away from the negative connotation that is associated to it. That's my opinion, but I'm probably biased because I've been in the industry for a long time. So, but I've seen the evolution.
Well, I think I completely agree with you, and that's exactly right. But I think it's interesting when you talk about landlords wearing a flex space or co-working, or they're convinced of the model. And I think the problem is it still comes back to this flexibility. It comes back to this short-term in and out proposition that really, especially in the UK and elsewhere in the world with investments, owners are finding it very difficult to put those into their models as a standalone product. They can do it as a product that blends with the rest of the building or with the rest of the asset or with the other products across the board. But there are some landlords that will just turn around, and property owners will turn around and say, well, actually, just, you know, either we can't do it because we don't want to do it, or the bank is saying we can't do it because we can't, you know, we can't allow for this ebb and flow, or the financiers, or even, you know, just the way that their building is set up. It can't have flexible workspace that works for everybody. So I think there's a definite three-tier. Yes, we want it. It'd be nice to have. We understand it, but we don't really know where it's going to make us money. And there's no, we can't do it.
And I'd also say that, you know, with our history, when Will and I have worked together in the past, you know, a lot of time is spent analyzing the model right from the beginning, the efficiency of the space, you know, how the customer going to use the space. Are you flexible with the amount of stock that you have under the roof? You know, is there too large a building? Is the building too small? You know, where is the right pinpoint? And, you know, we've gone through many models together where some, you know, some buildings won't get a look in. So there's a lot of analysis that has to go into that. And we also need to acknowledge that WeWork, they had very fast rollout. They wanted to have market share very quickly. And sometimes maybe you don't make the right decisions when you're in that when you're in that mode. So, and we obviously now see how it's playing out.
Will, are we at a stage now where large companies, blue chips and so on, that, you know, they've been scaling down their traditional, in inverted commas, office inventory, and are starting to use flex space more and more? Is this the kind of start of a new chapter for this sector, with that kind of customer base growing from the kind of individuals and SMEs perhaps that it's traditionally been to a much sort of broader scale, and incorporating these blue chips?
It definitely is. And you know, if you speak to the likes of Mark Dixon, etc., and WeWork in terms of who they've done deals with, if you look at Facebook, you know, taking a huge amount of the enterprise space with WeWork, for example, and if you look at somebody like BP, who took a whole building from TOG, in Fitzrovia. You know, this is a trajectory that these corporates can look at and actually say, how can we save? I mean, real estate is one of the biggest, or if not the biggest, cost outside of salaries for these companies. And if there's a way to mitigate that and use space wisely on an on-demand basis, then there has to be further growth in this. You know, we know that IWG have got multiple passes with, you know, for multiple sites with corporates, and I think we're going to see that grow. If you speak to all operators, and I think Anna maybe, you know, like in Porto, but I think, you know, we are seeing, especially in the UK, that I'm out of the operators. Remember, I speak to the operators as much as I possibly can because I have to understand what they're up to, etc. I would say the vast majority, if not in the late 90s, percent-wise, have got some form of corporate, either swing space or direct space or whatever else. So it's going to grow. We've got a big problem with this live-work model that's changed since COVID, and how people work and where they work, etc., and how they work flexibly. That's not going to be cleared up quickly, because every company's going to have a different driver, every operator's going to have a different driver, every owner's going to have a different driver. So I think we're going to spend the next 10, 20 years really understanding how this starts evolving and how people, you know, get into flex, get into the hospitality side of it, and actually what they get out of it as their core business, as they're doing other things.
Yeah.
We'll sorry, I was going to say we'll on to work in a minute, but I want to come to you actually, Anna, to ask you if you have seen your customer base evolving. I know you've only been open for a couple of years in Porto.
Yeah.
Have you seen a change in the customer base over that time, and are there more larger companies and corporates coming on board?
Yeah, even for us that we are just in the business for 2.5 years, and that's nothing compared with some of you, so stay in the business for 20 years. But even for us, we can see changes happening already. So and it's exactly what Will was talking about. We start after COVID, so we already start with these changes in the market, in the work market for that reason. But even for us, we can see that in the beginning. So we start in the late of 2021, and in the beginning we could see a lot of digital nomads. We have a lot of passes, just 1 day pass, and a lot of clients that want to stay for 1 day and then come back in the next week, and all that. We worked with big companies too for team buildings and renting just book meeting rooms or something like that, but not just not for the renting space, the full space or something like that. But by now we can see that, for example, we have in this second space that you met, George, that we have a private office, and the demand for private office, it's crazy. Even for big companies, we could see that they have 100 employees or something like that, but they want to rent a private office with 30 desks, so they can rotate the desks, because some of the employees work remotely, so just for some days they go to the office, and they want to be connected with the space and the other spaces of co-working. So they don't want now a traditional office like in the past. They want to be connected with the community of co-working space. They want to book a meeting room if they need, book a phone booth, invite some colleagues or other companies or suppliers to have a meeting in the space. And it's different for them to have his based in the co-working space, or if they just have their space in a traditional office. So for them, the image, that they pass to the clients or the suppliers to be in the co-working space, it's different,
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Tina, Will alluded to the fact that he expects working patterns and company policies and so on to be in flux for quite some time. Do you think that's the case? And do you think maybe the 3 days in, 2 days remote, which seems to be fairly widespread, is that going to be the kind of nucleus of it, and people will work around that?
I think it's still very much in flux. I think the employees or the employers have to respect that there is a lot of flexibility that employees now, have as part of the overall work experience. So whether that's working a bit from home, a bit from a co-working space, a bit from a corporate office or a hub somewhere. And what we've seen in our interaction is, again, going back to a number of larger clients relocating their head office. As they're waiting for head office space to be finished in a new build, they go into a co-working space, large deals of 100, 200 people. And when they come out of the space, they often have hub space that are very convenient to the employees. So this would be, for instance, a corporate client that have got a lot of space even in remote locations a bit further out of town as well, and then sometimes they come into town. So the hubs in different places have become quite popular. So I don't think personally it's completely settled yet, but there is a definite need for people to be in a community, like Anna said, whether you are a freelancer or whether you are a corporate client, to be able to have a destination to go to, and when you get there, that you have a nice feeling. You feel welcome. It's a nice environment. You feel you want to go there, and it's convenient for you. And I think that's it. It's still settling. I think it's the jury is still out there how it's going, but it's the need for flexibility is there.
Yeah. Will from a landlord's and an operator's perspective, in terms of the customer mix, is there a sort of sweet spot in terms of having SMEs, blue chips, freelancers, or does that vary a lot by location, or is to kind of create a buzz in a place to is there an ideal ratio of one type of company to the other?
I'm sure there is, and I'm sure that it's been met somewhere, but it's very difficult to do. I mean, if you look at the co-working, the community model, you've got to get people that are willing to step outside of their private offices and go and have that community interaction, not just a water cooler moment that you used to get in the past. I think if you look at a lot of operators, there's this big balancing act about accepting large companies into a flexible workspace. I know some operators that will only give away a maximum of 15%, 20% of that space to a large occupier, because whilst when they sign, that's fantastic, what a great income for the next year, 2 years, whatever it is, when they leave, there's a huge hole, a huge void that they've got to fill. So we have this issue with getting this sweet spot between large companies, SMEs and individuals. What we are seeing, and Tina, I'm sure you'll back me on this. When Tina and I first started in the sector, we very much was worked on the predication of a nice narrow building, 14, 16, 18 meters wide, corridor down the middle, offices of each side. And those offices in general would be between 1, 2, 3, 4 people maximum. I mean, there'd be a few larger suites, obviously, but we ended up in a situation where the space becomes really inefficient, where you've got partitions, a 1-person room, a 2-person room. So what co-working and breakout did, whilst it took away from that private office income, it allowed individuals to sort of flow into that space, and then providing larger 3, 4, 5, 6-person rooms and upwards within the spaces, making it more efficient, etc., better returns, especially when you're providing now breakout space as well. So there's this, and it is very location specific, it's even building specific as well, how the floor plates work. So we've got this ever-evolving model with operators where they are sitting, one day they may be sitting with what they believe is the perfect blend, and the next day somebody leaves, and then what do you do with the space after that? And when the next person asks for a small suite, a large suite, etc. So there's a lot of toing and froing, but I think the blend across the board is key.
Yeah. Tina, on the subject of locations, in city centres, we're seeing grade A office space doing really well. anything below that is struggling. Does a conversion from a traditional office to flex in kind of secondary and tertiary locations offer an opportunity to revitalize some of these buildings that are struggling a bit? Do they work in secondary and tertiary locations?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's huge stock, as we know, and quality grade office space is key for many clients, especially larger corporates in city centers as well as out of town. And it has become a criteria for many when they're in their office search to have a newly refurbished office space. Again, going back to the employee experience, you want to look after them, you want to retain talent, you want the space to look fresh, clean, modern. And also when looking at some buildings in central cities as well as out of town, you know, there are some buildings that need a lot of upgrade. You know, the mechanical and electrical installations need to be upgraded. You know, you've got the green agenda. You know, it is an opportunity to start, you know, tidying up the stock, and actually convert some of the buildings that haven't had the investment. You know, even before the pandemic hit, you know, there was a lot of outside stock that didn't get any investment. So, and hopefully this is an opportunity to try and convert some of that to more attractive space.
Yeah,
I think, Will, you probably see more of that stock when you're working with some partners at the moment, but you know, I've been working on a few deals over the last couple of years where there has been no investment in the buildings for quite a long time, and that's tricky.
It makes it very tricky, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. I keep going back to who is the ultimate, you know, occupier and user of the space. It's the employee, and so therefore it's the employee that's dictating, you know, where they want to work at the moment. How long that'll go on for, who knows? But they will continue to do so. And if you're not providing space that meets their needs, either through design, product, service, hospitality, then ultimately people, you know, employers aren't going to take the space with you. And that does change on a location basis. Everybody wants grade A buildings. They'd love to have a grade A building. But what a lot of operators are doing, a lot of operators are able to take grade B and even grade C buildings and turn them into something really quite special that really, you know, gives something different in the marketplace, that ultimately landlords can't really do because they're just trying to give large chunks away, and the building itself doesn't lend itself towards that. So yeah, it's a really interesting time we're in.
Yeah, Anna, it's interesting what Will said, because that's the approach that you guys have taken. You've refurbished existing office stock and given it a new lease of life. So what are you doing in terms of design and amenities? What are you putting into your spaces, and what do your customers expect? What do they demand to have in each of the new spaces?
Yeah, one of the companies of the group, Phil Venture, it's a company designed for that, you know. So it's a team of architects to see, you know, to imagine the building and the demand that we have, and what kind of design it could have. And of course, that's all our projects are, it has a specific design, and it has our face, you know, the company. And when they people visit our spaces, they know that they are from Phil Group. They know that they are vertical. We have a lot of greens from plants. We have a lot of wood, and that's the design that we bring to our space. Beside that, and I believe that it's one of the high values that we have on the space, because it's what we hear from our guests when they enter in the space. You know, we feel that. But beside that, we work with our team to make the space as much flexible possible. You know, it's what Will was talking about to have this merge and this balance between large companies or more traditional office and flex space. We try to do it in the whole space, so we have to attend to all the needs that our guests has. So we have phone booths, we have meeting rooms, we have private office that can convert to meeting rooms, or can be 2 or 4 or 6 person office, and then we can move the walls and make a bigger office if it needs. So this flexible is the key for our spaces, and I believe it's the key for the sector, because this sector is changing a lot. And in the beginning, we have a lot of digital nomads that are just looking for a flex space, a flex desk. It doesn't need to be really big, for example. But now the demand is different, and now we have a lot of monthly passes, and people that want to stay there for 1 month and want to be near the window, and want to have a big desk, and want to rent a monitor if they need. So some of them want to work standing up, for example. So we have to accommodate all the needs of our guests, and that's how we are working in our design with our team of architects to be possible to attend all our guest needs.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. I was getting backache from sitting down all day, so I tried standing up, and I just got backache in a different place. Didn't really work.
I'm stood up now. I'm on my sit-stand desk now, so I feel righteous.
Very good. Tina, in terms of design, are these kind of multi-use flexible spaces that Anna alluded to, are they becoming a more important element in the design and indeed conversion of existing office spaces?
Yeah, I think from a customer point of view, without a doubt. I mean, going into a new refurbished building where you've got different zones, where you have a bit of privacy, you have open plan co-working, you can meet a colleague. You know, I think the different zones of the community is really important. And I think it's become quite common that, you know, the flex operators, they do offer that within the offer that is the first impressions when you come into the center. You meet and greet the person behind the desk, and that there is flexibility to have a private room as well as something a bit more open where you can actually meet colleagues or clients that come into the building. And we, you know, a lot of clients also grow within the space. They start off with a couple of workstations. They grow within the building. They may take different space in a different building. So for the operator to be able to accommodate those needs and be able to react very quickly to the requirements of the client and work with them in that growth, when they're in growth mode, is really hugely important. And then the operator understands, you know, the client's needs in general. And I think all of those zones have become more and more evolved over the last few years, with many companies providing, you know, various different types of booths, open booths, closed booths, podcast studios, you know, larger training areas, and the fact that you can actually convert the space, as Anna just alluded to, you know, an office can become a meeting room and the other way around. And there's very sort of variations of the same theme, because it helps the operators from an efficiency point of view, and also helps the clients with the, you know, the list of options they have under one roof, basically.
Yeah, thanks, Tina. Will, at the start of the session, you talked about how WeWork raised the bar massively in terms of the experiential aspect of coming into the office. Is the kind of programming and events and fostering of a community spirit still high on operators' agendas, or are people a bit wary of that now?
Do you know what? It's a really interesting. I was only talking to somebody about this earlier this week. It's a really interesting model that we've got, and talking about the hospitality product and service line to it. Those operators, especially the new ones that are coming in, understand fully that it's absolutely required. It's about, and it goes back to Tina's point before, you know, to provide something and an asset that not only meets the employers but the employees' demands is going to be critical. So providing this events and experiential products is only going to grow, because it means that you're taking what was a very rigid vertical real estate market or real estate product and asset, and you're turning into somewhere that people, not just maybe occupiers of that building, but people outside the building can come and use and start utilizing that space and putting that asset onto a different plane in terms of how it's viewed from the outside world. So I think we are seeing more and more. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of operators out there, especially in the UK, that are still doing a very well in terms of just providing office space, breakout area, etc., not necessarily putting events on. But they are getting fewer and fewer. The more people are turning, even the ones that have been around the sector for 20 years, 30 years, are moving their product and actually understanding that to provide something that is experiential or as it meets employees' sort of day-to-day needs or demands is absolutely critical to making sure, one, their operation is successful, and two, that the asset there within becomes, and especially when you're doing a partnership with an owner, the owner is understanding that it's going to bring a whole new experience to the building, new occupiers, new demand patterns, ability to flex in and flex out, etc. So it's personally, I think it's critical, especially for the flex sector, to remain, and again, I'm using the word flex, and we talk about flex here, for that sector, for co-working operators, serviced operators, flexible workspace operators, whatever you want to call them, to remain at the forefront of employees' demands and employers' demands. Good grief, I think it can't go anywhere else but just continue to grow.
And is the kind of nature of that programming and those events, is that evolving? I mean, I guess traditionally it would have been, maybe involving food and drink and socializing and stuff, but is that moving more across to the kind of health and wellness side of things, and yoga and classes and this sort of thing?
Absolutely. And I talk a lot about tick box processes, where a lot of asset owners said, right, we're going to put a cafe in, tick. We're going to put a gym in, tick. What do we do with those? Do we put gym class on? No. Bruce uses the gym twice a week, but nobody else uses it. We've got this new way of looking at it to say that we are changing the way. We're going to put classes on. We're going to have that health experience. We're going to put the gym in there, but it's going to be run with, professionals taking that space on. Not everybody can do it. Obviously, there's a cost implication. But those cafes then start becoming something different. They become drivers for people to come into the space and utilize maybe event space where they can use that cafe afterwards, or bar area afterwards, or during. So we are seeing this huge, again, going back to the vertical asset, we're seeing all this changing and understanding why people want to use spaces. Don't just put them in for the sake of putting them in. It's about trying to make sure that people are utilizing them, what value you get out of them, what value the occupier gets out of them. And flex space operators in particular are very well positioned to talk to their clients. The traditional landlord anywhere around the world was signing a lease and then was saying, well, I'll see you in 5-10 years time when you come out of the lease, or we've got dilapidations or a rent review. But we are in a position now where these operators are speaking to their clients day in, day out, their occupiers. And you can say to them, what works? What doesn't work? What do you like about this? And that's anybody that can do that, any operator or even a landlord, which is very difficult for them to do in the current times, can speak to their occupiers and say, what is making you come here? What do you like? What don't you like? That's going to be imperative moving forward, that they do keep ahead of the curve and keep driving, these factors forward.
Anna, do you put on events for your clients? And if so, what have been the successful ones? What do they like?
Yes, I mean, the happy hours time are gone, so this is just the basic, that every spaces have, and it's not just that our clients are looking for. We have been doing a lot of events, most of them contracted, so the clients want to book this kind of service. That is a service that we provide too. But then we have some different events going on. So we have once a month we have some woman entrepreneurs that go in there to have a breakfast, and we provide the space for them to just discuss, you know, the how difficult it is to do a human entrepreneur and all of that stuff. So they share their experience, and every woman can join, any member from Coworking. So it's not a private event, you know, so it's cool because of that too. We had already yoga sessions too, so about healthcare too. So clients are looking for this kind of stuff. And nowadays we don't just have cafe or a coffee shop. We have a local women that go to our space to cook typical food, typical Porto food. So to have the clients more connected to the city, because of course it depends of the clients of each space. In our case, we have a lot of clients. They are not from Portugal, so it's important to them to be connected with the culture of the country and of the city. And we want to strict this, to have this connection between our clients and our city. We have now, I believe, George, that when you were there, we didn't have yet, but we have now an exhibition of photography for a local artist too, and we are going to have this on our space too, to help the community and to join our members and our clients to our community too. So, you know, there are some simple things that you can do that it doesn't represent a high cost or a higher cost or something like that, but it's important to connect to people. And we receive a lot of clients that came from other co-workings, that they come to us because they want to have this community sense that they didn't feel in the other space. And when we are talking with some clients that are alone because they are here remote working for a US company or something like that, they feel lonely if they don't have this part of community, you know, that we have community managers in every space, and it's important for them to go to speak with every member to check if everything is okay. Talk a little bit about other stuff, not just about work or about the co-working, but what they like to do when they are not there. And it's really cool for us to see when we can see that there is already some group of members that know each other, that go for dinner, for example, and it's really cool for us to understand that we are able to create this community in our space.
Well, talking of the local food in Porto, you wouldn't last long if you had a Francesina for lunch every day in the office.
We are going to have it in next Tuesday, actually.
It's about the most calorific dish on the planet, delicious as it is. Tina, how important is a building's environmental performance and credentials, both to client companies and to individual end users?
I think the industry, I mean, the green agenda is here and has been here for a number of years. And I think going back to all new builds, and many larger corporates are now, you know, seeking a very high criteria when they go into office buildings. And I think both operators, you know, if they're not already working actively on the green agenda within, you know, their whole sustainability planning in the company, gradually they will be forced to have a higher greener, you know, topic on the agenda without a doubt. And also from a client perspective, you know, it can actually become part of the criteria when you're going into a serviced office building. What is the performance of the building? You know, I talk a lot to various different clients about when you are fitting out the office spaces, you know, the green environment around the whole, all the materials that are being used within the space, the durability, you know, is it going to stand the test of time, you know, the products that are being used. So it's a complete circle, you know, the whole topic and how energy efficient the building is in general. So if it's not on the agenda already, it's creeping very fast up in everybody's minds.
Do you think we're at the stage yet where client companies are basing their decision on which space to take, you know, basing that on the environmental performance?
Sometimes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's going back to Will's tick box. That tick box is also, you know, not just for the operators, but for a client shopping. You know, there's so much space in the marketplace right now. Let's say, you know, I'm being a bit London centric now, but you know, there's so much space in London and a lot of choice, even in smaller districts. You land in Oxford Street, many operators around Oxford Street, you know, there is often a tick box there within the client's minds of, you know, close to the train station, has it got a cafe, X, Y, and Z, that they are moving down the list of the criteria, and the sustainability and the performance of the buildings are definitely part of that.
Thanks, Tina. Let's talk about a bit about investment and finance. Will, how is investor and lender sentiment to the flex space in general, and have investors been spooked at all by the WeWork saga?
How long have you got? It's a bit of a
minutes for this one.
Oh, exactly. It's a really interesting. It's so polarized. It's so polarized, and I think we just go back to my original comments about, you know, we've got a big issue in terms of, if we look at the real estate side of things outside of external investors. If we look at the real estate side of things, you know, real estate has always been something good to invest in because it's been long-term income, it's been sustainable income, etc. We're now obviously with the flex market, you know, it's a very different. It was always very different, and it was only ever valued really on the basis of this fluctuating short-term income. If you speak to some operators, they'll sit there and say, well, actually, look, you know, there's a definite line of income that's been going through the model for 10, 15 years. You know, can we not value that? Can we not look at the way that, you know, the extras are put on top? But now we are in a position that the sector is being better understood. The WeWork thing hasn't helped and will continue not to help. But I think a lot of people have understood, especially in the real estate world. I remember I'm in a bubble in the flex world, or we're in a bubble in the flex world, but the real estate world outside that I work in have taken the view that actually they almost understand why WeWork didn't work. You know, they were never profit making. They were taking buildings that were really large floor plates, which no other operator had ever done, and to an extent are not doing still. They're taking, you know, they were taking long leases, or that, which is not necessarily a problem, but on ridiculously high rents. And there was an understanding that the arbitrage between the income against the rental costs and rates cost and staff costs, etc., was always out of kilter. So we've got this, you know, a sector that is still growing despite it being massively mature in the UK, that investors are now looking in and saying, you know, we've got people like Blackstone and Brockton, who have now obviously joined there too with Tog and Fora. We've got I've completely forgotten names in front of terms of, you know, names, but there are huge investors that are actually in the sector already, that have already either bought into operators or are, you know, something like Landsec, for example, have got when they bought HEWN started it, and they've got a joint venture with PlusX, which is an incubation product. But you know, and Landsec and HEWN were very, you know, linear companies in terms of real estate world. So sentiment is changing. It's not going to change overnight. So, and again, I've said that before, but it's and I think because flex moves so quickly, because the market has moved so quickly, we all expect everything to move equally as quickly across the board. It doesn't happen investment wise. They want to be able to understand what they're investing in. Is it tangible? Is it, you know, experiential? And does it provide the returns on a long-term or even short-term basis that people want to have? So we are going to see more and more investment into the sector. We've already seen that, and you know, we've seen property owners getting into the sector. Landsec, go out to Landsec. They've got their Myo product. You've got British Land with Story. You know, we've got already people, property companies looking into it, but I think it's still some way away, and an understanding of how each operator works. And when I go back to when I talked about earlier about, you know, in the old days, it was just office, income play on offices only. Now we've got operators providing event space, health space, niche space, tech space, whatever it is. That's going to further expand the market, which is great, but also cause more problems for investors that say, well, actually, how do we value them against them? Are they a better bet? Do they have a product that we can bank on, et cetera, et cetera? So it's an interesting time. We know there's going to be, you know, with all new companies and all new sectors, and you know, I talk about new. I think since WeWork, we are looking at a very different market in terms of flex space. It's still an immature market from that point of view, the actual flex space co-working model. But as we move forward, we'll see some casualties, I'm absolutely sure, but we'll see some massive growth. We'll see some M&A. We'll see, you know, investors really stepping into it, and real estate companies and companies outside of real estate as well.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you, Bill. Tina, to what extent have high interest rates and high cost of development finance slowed the growth of the sector over the last couple of years? And are you starting to see things improve in that regard?
I think the appetite to, as we talked about earlier, to invest and into the, you know, old stock, whether it's old stock in town, out of town, I think we're seeing a small movement. Obviously, there's been some hesitation before the pandemic and after the pandemic. You know, cash is king to try and get some of the stock upgraded, and because there is too much of it. So I think, you know, the interest rate is obviously is a huge concern with, you know, the lenders and investors in general in coming into the space. But I think, you know, we're seeing slow signs of some positive movement there. But I also want to, you know, reiterate what Will said before is, you know, we're seeing growth, but, you know, really analyzing the investment model. You know, there are so many different buildings of different sizes, you know, good natural daylight, you know, huge floor plates, you know, to really spend some time looking at the actual floor plates to see, you know, what makes sense from an investment point of view, and the returns and the location of these of the buildings. And obviously we're seeing a lot of you know, people work from home in more urban areas, where, you know, you have some city centers where there's a lot of stock, but equally there's growth in the markets outside in smaller towns, because people don't want to commute. So I mean, it's a very positive sign that the regional network is growing, and for that, investment needs to happen in the smaller cities, basically.
Yeah. Tina, is there a significant cost difference in say you want to convert an old tired office building? Is there a significant cost difference between converting that to a state-of-the-art flex space and what you might call a traditional office space?
Oh, costs are always going up at the moment, aren't they? So it's a really tricky question, because both operators and your traditional client in going into a customer going into a space, you know, they've had to step up their game on, you know, what does good design look like? What are the materials you're using? What is making the experience, you know, stand out when you walk into the building? You know, first impressions count always. You know, more than 50% is the first impressions when you walk into a building. So, you know, serviced office operators are also spending more money in their CapExes, partly because, you know, costs are going up, materials are going up, but also because, you know, with the competition, there needs to be something that stands out. I would say that a traditional client that goes into a head office environment would potentially spend more than a flex workspace operator. And also because now they are raising their own bar in attracting talent back to the workplace, you know, more amenities, more health, well-being, you know, to make sure that, you know, good technology, easy technology to use. So we're talking about the same themes, but I think if you are going into traditional office space on a long-term lease, your CapEx will tend to be higher.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Tina. Will, one of the themes that seems to be emerging in this sector is the growth of management agreements over leases. Is this going to be the way forward? And do you think, will the lease have had its day at some point?
Question I'm often asked. No, I don't think the lease has had its day at all. In fact, I think it comes down to risk reward. That's what it comes down to. And I think the way to look at it is that's from an operator's point of view. If you're looking from an owner's point of view, you've got two ways of doing it. You either just lease to an operator which helps your valuation of your building, helps the building fill up. You base it on covenant, the valuation is, etc., and it just sits there as a standalone flexible workspace. You have no interaction with it. The asset itself, if you want to let the top floors and somebody says, well, great, I can flex downstairs. Well, yeah, you can, but only if the flex operator's got space. There's no partnership there at all. It's very much about the operator being a standalone entity. And that's where management agreements come in, where for owners that can do it, they want to be able to say, well, actually, look, our building has got flex in it, and it's part of our business. It's part of what we offer as the asset, and therefore we can flex and move and mold our occupiers into that space or out of that space. So that's where management agreements from an owner's point of view comes, is massively important, because they are then benefiting from the upside in terms of income, reduced voids, hopefully, increased rents in the rest of the building because they've got the ability to move in and out of other parts. When you come to an operator's side, actually, the lease itself, if you take a lease and you do a right lease, you actually get the best returns. The most risk, the best returns, because you are just paying that rent out and you're saying all the rest of that income, obviously all the operational costs, service charge rates, etc., is ours. Where you've got a management agreement, it's obviously the least amount of risk, but you are taking a fee generally and then taking a profit share afterwards. That seems to be the way that most people are doing it. So you've got this issue where operators can risk reward, and some will take leases and say, actually, you know what, I'll take that risk. I can limit that risk day one by signing the right deal, the right lease, and make sure that rent reviews are sensibly done, and therefore I can have all that money myself, or that revenue or that profit will be retained by myself. Or I may be looking at a profit share lease or a turnover lease or some sort of partnership lease where we actually do share with the owner, but we de-risk, we take the risk in terms of service charge rates and all the operational costs, but we de-risk the returns on that rent. So when the market moves, we can flex with that market. So again, that's the sort of the middle tier option with risk reward again. And then the final one, obviously, management agreements. Some operators are really set up for management agreements to say, actually, look, this is what we do. We partner with an owner. We either white label or we use our own brand. So that way around, I think we are in a position that management agreements are definitely growing as owners understand why they should be looking at this space. They don't necessarily want to have an arm's length transaction. Some have to. But we are going to see leases grow as well. If you look in central London, I could name you 10, maybe 12, 15 operators that are looking at leases at the moment. Maybe not so much in the regions. Having said that, I'm looking at one in particular at the moment in a regional town for an operator. So we are going to see the growth of both, if I'm completely honest with you. But I think partnerships are going to become more and more important.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you. Well, that's a good note to end it on. It's 12 o'clock. I just want to show a couple of slides before we finish, and also give a shout out to Anna from Suzanne Murdoch, who visited one of her spaces in Porto last November and said it was amazing, homely feeling and a really great atmosphere. So thank you for that, Suzanne.
Thank you so much for your words, George.
So we have a webinar coming up from our sister brand Boutique Hotel News on the 14th of March, and it's actually got a fair amount of crossover with this section, particularly in terms of the models and the pricing and stuff. And it's looking at private members clubs. My colleague Eloise Hansen is hosting that one, and if you'd like to join that one, you can see the link to sign up in the chat. Another great panel there, including Michael Achenbaum from Gansevoort and Harry Harris from SUSD. Some real good industry knowledge there. So I recommend you sign up for that one. If you'd like to work with us at Urban Living News on any of our digital product or our in-person events, please get in touch with my colleague Henry. You can see his details on the screen and also in the chat. Thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks to our fantastic panelists for their contributions. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to leave the session open for a minute or two so you can take some notes from the chat. If you're on any of the social channels you can see on the screen there, then give us a follow. It'd be good to interact with you there. Enjoy the rest of your days, enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you all on another webinar soon. Thanks very much.
Hello, we are International Hospitality Media, or IHM for short. IHM is the #1 brand to engage with decision makers in hospitality and real estate. Our 4 multimedia brands lead their respective sectors with breaking news, comments, trends and opinion across a variety of multimedia solutions. We provide an inspirational community to connect people through world-class events, webinars, podcasts, award schemes and much more. But let us share our story of who we are and what we do. Over 10 years ago, Piers & George had a light bulb moment to provide expert opinion, comments and low-cost digital content. And so they went on a journey over the past decade, creating media platforms to serve the hospitality and real estate industries. We now have an engaged audience with a reach of over 60,000 monthly visitors across our website, 48,000 of our email database across all the sectors, and over 67,000 across our social channels. Everything we do believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. We make things simple and very easy to work with us. And we're a friendly bunch too. We offer creative solutions to help you achieve your business goals. Read, watch, listen, meet with IHM. Contact us for a chat today. Just look at some of the brands we have worked with recently.